Hello world! It was 2015 when I wrote my first Hello World program. I had moved from science, being a scientist, into learning programming. And when I was a beginner, I asked alumni of the program I was studying to give me advice on what would be something that they wish they did when they were a beginner. And this wise and kind woman advised me to start a blog, to start writing and to start sharing what I am learning as I am learning. She said, don't wait until you finish. Don't wait until you feel like you're ready. Don't wait until you feel like you're competent. Just start writing. Just start sharing. Because it's going to be valuable for your future self. It's going to be valuable for other beginners. And that is one thing that I wish I did. Back then, I knew that's a good advice. I did attempt to follow that advice. I started the blog and I started writing one post and then another. But I found myself overthinking. I found myself really laboring at this and I was judging every effort that I was making. And I guess that's what imposter syndrome looks like. So imposter syndrome just ate that effort up. I never felt like I know enough to share. I didn't feel like I have anything of value. After all, what do I know about programming? I'm just a beginner. And that mindset of who am I to talk about ... has kept me prisoner. This one new journey is going to be different. I am now at the brink of a new adventure. And this time I do intend on sharing my journey. I enrolled in astrology course with the AstroTwins that begins on March 9th. In just a couple of days, the adventure begins and I'm becoming my own astrologer. So I want to talk about how did this came to be. It is a very stark detour from the journey I have walked so far, from science, studying biology, studying environmental science and genetics and biotechnology, to moving into the tech world and becoming a web developer, working full-time as a web developer for 5 years, and now at this point quitting my full-time job, freelancing as a programmer, but following another calling. And I want to unravel how did this came to be? Why? How did I know that astrology is my next thing? So if I try to recall the beginnings, how did I know about astrology? How did astrology enter my world? The honest and not so amusing answer is I don't know. And that's funny. That's funny because I feel like I don't know the day that I learned that I'm a Leo. I don't recall such day, it feels to me as if I knew that I'm a Leo, and very proud of that. I like that fact ever since I learned that I exist, ever since I gained consciousness about myself. So even though this was a fact, it was something that was never apparent to me, that is tied to some sort of a calling, to some sort of a deeper purpose. I grew up at a time where we didn't have internet and we couldn't just Google anything that strikes our fancy and find others that are into the same thing and connect and just find all the resources. And I love the day and age that we live in. It's such an empowering day and age. But back in the day, that wasn't the case. And the only touch with astrology that I had as a child were magazines and were the horoscope pages of the magazine. And that never interested me. It was just not something that I could really find truth in. That's one aspect. Another aspect is that I don't like the concept that somebody else dictates my fate, somebody or something else. My highest value of freedom just couldn't accept that, just couldn't accept neither religious calling nor astrology as some force that determines my fate and my journey. So there was this interest that I wanted to know the horoscope signs of people, but I wouldn't go out of my way to find that out. If it happens that I learned their birth of date, it was an automatic process for me to calculate their horoscope sign and then register that. But astrology, what that was the predictive kind, was the prescriptive kind, was the kind that says it's Mercury retrograde, therefore you have to have problems with technology. And I was like, yeah, I don't think so. I don't want to subscribe to those notions. So for the longest time, that was just something that I lived with. I would always be interested in people who knew more about astrology. I would be interested in people who knew how to read natal charts. I would be very drawn to those conversations. And I did have a couple of friends that dabbled with astrology early on. And that was a lot of fun. But it seems to me that I was really keeping the worlds of anything that is not science, not subject to proof, not left brain, separate from this other domain, other world, the right hemisphere, if you will, the intuitive and mystical and unknowable. But the truth is, I always had that. And it was very painful on a soul level to have to repress that side of me, because I just didn't know how to reconcile those two. I thought that these worlds clash so much that they have to be at war. They just can't peacefully coexist, because if I say, yes, I am into astrology and I'm into spiritualism, well, that undermines my value as a scientist, that undermines my credibility as a programmer. Vice versa, I couldn't surrender to the magic, to the unprovable. I couldn't really surrender to belief because of, well, where's the evidence kind of mentality. And for the longest time, I led with that leg. For the longest time, that was my stronghold. That was where I was really strong. But as years progressed and as I was becoming actually more and more successful in the endeavors that I took on, that were very left brain, there was something in me that was just yearning for attention. There was this voice that was just seeking to be heard, seeking to express. I was just growing increasingly not fulfilled. And it's not like I didn't love programming. I love programming and I still do. It's just that it felt like I'm hopping on one leg through life. And I'm not meant to have one leg. I have two legs, and I'm not somehow using them because I feel it's wrong to use them, or one has no right to exist. So it took me a while until I fully came to a place where I can accept that this is who I am, this is my reality, that I am bridging opposites, and that's okay, that there is nothing wrong with that. I don't have to choose. I don't have to go this way or that way. And with this kind of allowing things to be, I okayed it for myself to go and read about astrology in my own free time, to go and explore my natal chart bit by bit, dissect it, learn about, or rather read about, what does it mean that I have Saturn in the first house? What does it mean that I have Pluto in the first house? What does that mean? And from the aspect of curiosity, how does this explain my experience? Not from the aspect of how does this determine my experience? And that is something that I did as a hobby. I wouldn't even regard it as such. It's just something that I did. So I came to a point where I just couldn't keep that balance anymore, because I was becoming increasingly unfulfilled in my programming. I felt that in my programming career, I felt like big pieces of me are missing. So as I was starting to feel symptoms of a burnout, I knew that it's time to change course. It's time to do something else, or rather not do what I have been doing. And I had the privilege that I could quit my job and still have freelancing opportunities and projects that cover, pay the bills. But then I had this vast space that I could fill with whatever I wanted, really, and I didn't know what I wanted. So it was very scary, empty, seemingly empty space. However, that empty space, there is no such thing as empty space now, I know, and there is just a space of infinite potential. It was uncomfortable for me to sit in that space because it scared me. It was just very difficult to wake up every morning and know that I'm dying in one identity and not having been born in another yet. But I allowed the time to germinate, to gestate in that uncomfortable space, and calm down my nervous system through daily practices of breathing and meditation and affirmations and everything that I had picked up along the way as means of connecting with the higher self, means of calming down my nervous system, just to be able to tolerate that uncomfortable void. And from that space, I heard a voice. I actually had a thought that I was conscious enough to catch that I'm thinking. And then from there, everything unraveled for me. So one day, as I was cooking, I was reminiscing about an acquaintance, ex-colleague. And as I was thinking about this person that is on the periphery of my life, like this is just an acquaintance, I caught myself thinking, oh, yes, such and such, he's a Virgo. And as I thought that thought, I was like, well, how is this relevant? Why do I know that? And why do I, now that I look into this, discover I have a whole repository, it's a database of people that exist in my universe, in my coordinate system, that have not just a name and a face, but they also have this space where I register their astrological signs. Basically, that was the spark. That was the insight. And then everything just clicked in place because I realized that I have been doing this all along. I have been on this path long before I thought this is a path. Long before I thought this is anything, really. And now, from this perspective, where I can research my interests, where I can just fire up search engines and research and see what is there and just enrich my universe with knowledge. Didn't take long for me to realize that astrology is a vast topic, just like everything else is, just like programming is. There is no one thing that is programming. It's not a monolith. It's many different parts that are all stitched under that umbrella. So, as in regards to astrology, I learned that the type of astrology that speaks to me, that interests me, is the astrology that has to do with deciphering our personalities, deciphering our potentialities, and our soul. And I found that the label for the exact astrology that drives me, draws me, interests me, is evolutionary astrology. And I found that, I don't even know how, somehow the internet gods brought up the marvelous and wonderful Stephen Forrest that just resonated with me as a person, as a teacher, to my core. And I was still not ready to jump full head on first and just enroll and buy courses, and didn't want to follow a pattern that I know I have, and that's the pattern of buying courses, starting things, and then not finishing. So I decided that with this one, I will buy a book, and I will start reading the book. I'll take small steps into taking astrology more seriously, but not full-on head-first dive, as is customary for me. Now, at this point, I also started following astrologers that spoke to me, that I resonated with. And I also bought myself a nice astro journal, Magic of Eye journal, that I just fell in love with. And through that, I got exposed to their blog and to the writers, the astrologers who write for that blog. And I started following them on Instagram, and basically I feel that I knew that there's gonna be something coming in the form of a more structured way of how I become an astrologer, if you will, how I really up my skills to a level where I feel competent, where I feel that I can comfortably look at a natal chart and know how to connect the dots, know how to make the meal out of the ingredients that I have. And that came as a synchronicity through Instagram, which I seldom look at. But at this one morning, just so happened that I did look at Instagram, and I found an interview with Colin Bedell, which is one of the astrologers I highly admire and follow and learn from a lot. And he had an interview with AstroTwins that I haven't heard before. He announced this conversation with Ophi from the AstroTwins as a conversation with his mentors. And I had wondered, how did he became what he is? I did wonder about his path and his journey. So this really drew my attention. I really hold him in high regards. So I listened to this interview, this call, and I knew that this is for me, that the style, the presentation, the mindset resonates with me. I just liked everything I heard in that conversation. So that's how I learned about the AstroTwins, which is funny because turns out they are well-established and very popular astrologers. I just didn't know. And I think that's a good circumstance, because I tend to not really... I'm a bit skeptical to people that are celebrities or there's a lot of hype around them. So this is actually a very good thing. And I just love how that unraveled for me, that I decided to attend a webinar that they had, a free webinar, to learn more about their offering, the course that they are starting. It's more boot camp. It's not a course. I think it's going to be really, really fun, and there's going to be a lot of learning because it's live, and it's just the format is not an online course that one goes through alone. It's a different format, and I have high hopes that this is going to be a very juicy, sweet, delicious journey for me that I intend to talk about. I intend to share. I intend to just solidify my knowledge and understanding by trying to talk about the things that I'm covering and that are my experience at that moment. So yes, after that free webinar, I did decide that I will enroll in the course, and I'm looking forward to starting it. Before I started, however, I promised myself that I will make this video, that I will share my journey. So in a sense, this is a two-in-one beginning. I'm also beginning filming myself. I'm also beginning posting myself, posting my videos on YouTube. And that's a whole different story. That's a whole different challenge. And that's a whole different ball of yarn that I do intend to talk about in a future video. So what I'm hoping to learn from this journey is more about my potential, more about my own map, more about where do I look in the chart if I need clarification or explanation why is a certain experience, life experience for me the way it is. Why do I have the patterns that I have? And maybe more importantly, what can be for me? What is the highest expression? Again, with the awareness that the potential is vast, and I determine what is my highest potential. But just like any journey, it's much easier when we have a map. It's much easier when we know the lay of the land. Having a map doesn't necessarily mean you have to go to this town rather than this town. It doesn't mean that you have to go the route that is on the map. It's could be even the same map in the very rare cases of people that happen to have the same map, like AstroTwins, like they're twins, they have the same chart, but it's not the same experience, it's not the same life. That is magical, that is so beautiful, and that is so uplifting for me. It's not incarcerating me, it's not boxing me, it's not saying, oh, it has to be this way rather than this way. That's the kind of astrology that I am open to explore, that I'm excited to explore. So I'm hoping to get the skills and the proficiency to use astrology as a tool for self-discovery, for self-illumination, and self-awareness. And in doing so, just understanding that everybody is on this journey and everybody is unique. Everybody has their own potentiality, which for me personally fosters compassion and fosters connection and understanding, just more openness, and acceptance that there is more than just our narrow-minded way of looking as through our human consciousness, which is cute. It's cute. It wants to play big, but it's a very good servant, but a very poor master. And I have been ruled by this master for a very long time, and now I'm breaking free.